Hello! We are back finally. I have no excuses. This is my own Oscars award ceremony for the best actors within the 4 Pride and Prejudice movies that I compared. So, we're gonna jump right into it. Before we get started on the actual awards, since nobody's actually getting awards, we're just gonna do that. Before I get into it, I have a few honorable mentions. Barbara Shelley as Mrs. Gardiner in the 1980 version. It's a very small part. It doesn't really typically need recognition, I think, in the grand scope of all of the characters in this, but I thought she was really great and I noticed her and not in a bad way. So I thought she deserved a little mention. Good job, Barbara. We're on a first name basis. Anthony Caff as Colonel Fitzwilliam in the 1995 version. He also, I thought, was fantastic. And honestly, I've had this conversation, like, I'm not gonna say all that right now. We're gonna talk about that later. But Anthony Caff. And Amelia Fox as Georgiana in the 1995 version. And if you are wondering, like, whoa, like, Georgiana is like, relatively important character in the story. Yes, she is. But unfortunately, she was not in all 4 of the films, so I don't have her as one of the characters that I am comparing, just because I can't compare her in all 4 films. I thought Amelia Fox was a fantastic Georgiana Darcy. She was the right amount of shy. She was perfect. On to the actual awards now. I need to stop doing this because my hands look so big. Miss Carolina Bingley. I'm gonna go, I think, kind of like in last to first, maybe. Kelly Riley from the 2005 version. She did fine. She was definitely like kind of a snotty, spoiled, mean girl type of personality, but I felt a little pulled out of the period with her, where I felt like I was watching almost like a more modern day rendition of Pride and Prejudice. Lady Marcia, I have no idea how to say that name. Marsha? She's known as Marsha, like Marsha. Fitzgerald, Fitzallen Harold, Fitzallen Howard. We're just gonna call her Marsha. She's from the 1980 version. She gets 3rd place. Anna Chancellor from the 1995, I thought did a good job at being snobbish, and she cut all of those sly little quips with Mr. Darcy and stuff. I think she just wasn't quite on point for me because sometimes it felt almost a little too over the top with her. I don't know, almost a... So, Best Actress for Miss Carolina Bingley goes to Frida Inniscourt from the 1940 version. She, to me, was the perfect combination of like sophistication and snobbery. She was very refined, but she was really good at coming across as just a horrible person too. So Frida Inniscourt wins for Miss Carolina Bingley. For Mr. Charles Bingley, we have in the 1940 version Bruce Lester. The 1980 version is Osmund Black. That's not it. Osmund Bullock for the 1980 version. Crispin Bonham-Carter from the 1995 version. And Simon Woods from the 2005 version. Bruce Lester is my least favorite. He comes across as very good-natured, but he just doesn't leave any sort of memorable mark. And then after that would have to be Simon Woods. He is adorable, but he comes across as just kind of goofy and dumb. And I feel like it's too caricature. Why is he stupid though? Like, I don't get why they needed to make him dumb just because he puts a lot of confidence in Mr. Darcy and he's a different personality, but he's not stupid. I didn't get that impression from the book. After that, it would be Osmund Bullock. I really liked Osmund Bullock. I thought he was very good-natured, and he just really came across as a great Mr. Bingley. But, I mean, Crispin Bonham-Carter is the best. He's just perfect. He fits that part so well. He wins. Lady Catherine de Bourgh We have Edna May Oliver from the 2000. I don't think she was probably alive at that point. From the 1940 version, Judy Parfitt from the 1980 version, Barbara Lee Hunt from the 1995 version, and Judi Dench from the 2005 version. For me, dead last is Barbara Lee Hunt from the 1995 version. I know I'm probably going to upset people, but she, for me, was the worst. Now, she's definitely in scenes that are so from the book and all of that, but that doesn't have anything to do with her. Her as an actress in this part did not work at all for me. She comes across as mousy. I don't believe that she has authority or that she was raised in refinement. She doesn't have that grace, elegance, poise, and command to her. She comes across as somebody that you would be scared to be around. Like, she's scary, but not intimidating. She's scary more like she might stab you in the eye kind of scary, but not like she could really command a room. I didn't get that feeling from her. So I'm sorry, she's dead last for me. And unfortunately, so when I found out that Judi Dench was going to be the casting for Lady Catherine de Bourgh, I was like, that's the perfect choice. But unfortunately, when it came down to it, in the way it was in the movie, I just didn't feel it. And I love Judi Dench, and I thought, like, if I was the director, I would have picked her. But it just didn't come across right for me, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it just wasn't right. And then it's down to Judy Parfitt. I thought Judy Parfitt was great. She really played the character well. I did struggle a little bit with her age, but again, I'm like, that probably makes sense that she's not as old as she's portrayed in like every other version, because she's not necessarily that old of a woman. But in the end, despite the fact that they took a lot of liberty in remaking her character, Edna May Oliver behaved exactly the way that I pictured her in the book. Despite the fact that she has a little bit of a change of heart in the movie versus the book, the way she acts, the way she carries herself, the way she talks, the way she behaves, just really, really made me feel like she was the Lady Catherine de Bourgh of the book, even though they changed her character some. I feel like this doesn't go together, but it's exactly how I feel, and I can't explain it better, so I'm moving on. Mr. Wickham. In 1940, it is Edward Ashley Cooper. The 1980 version is Peter Sutherland. In the 1995 version, Adrian Lucas. And the 2005 is Rupert Friend. Peter Sutherland for me he came across as roguish and all of that, but the problem is that he did come across as roguish. And I feel like Elizabeth is not somebody who would be easily confused. He needs to be sly, and that is how he is in the book. Like, he comes across as a very likable person and a trustworthy person. So for him to come across so roguish felt to me, I don't know, it didn't work. He was too roguish for Wickham. He needs to be cleverer than that. In the 1995 version would be my second least favorite. That is Adrian Lucas. He also came across as a little too, he just wasn't quite, he was still a little too roguish for me in a visible way. I didn't see Elizabeth being fooled by him. I feel like Adrian Lucas should have been switched with Anthony Caff, because they both have kind of this similar likable personality to them, but I found myself drawn in with Anthony Caff like very quickly, like, oh, I could totally believe this guy. And I feel like that's the kind of character that you want to cast for Mr. Wickham, where you're like, he's really likable, he's a really nice guy. And that's how, like, you have intelligent women like Elizabeth being blindsided by him partway through the book. And I felt like they should have switched the casting for those two. I didn't think he was bad, but I thought that he could have been better. Rupert Friend is just, he comes across as very sweet and very dashing. I could see better how they could kind of be swept up by Rupert Friend, which is kind of ironic. The name is not your friend. Again, and I know you guys know that I like the 1940 version of the movie, but it is largely because of the casting. And so, again, Edward Ashley Cooper is the best Mr. Wickham. He comes across as very good-natured, and like I feel like I could trust this guy. He seems like a good guy. I don't know, like I really thought he did a great job as Mr. Wickham. Lydia Bennett. We have Anne Rutherford from the 1940 version, Natalie Ogle from the 1980 version, Julia Sawalha from the 1995 version, and Jenna Malone from the 2005 version. Jenna Malone was my least favorite. She was definitely the immature, giggly, outgoing younger sister. I don't know, honestly, if it's that I don't like the actress or I don't want to say it that way. Like, I don't have a problem with her. I don't know if I just don't like her or if I don't like her in this part, but whichever it is, I just didn't like her as Lydia Bennett. And similarly, I felt the same about Julia Sawalha. I love Julia Sawalha. I don't want to say this, but I didn't like her as Lydia Bennett. She is definitely immature and she behaves very naively, and I think a lot of that fits with Lydia Bennett. She is immature, she's naive, she's all of those things, but I feel like there's a line of believable immaturity in that particular type of setting and household, and there is over the top, and I feel like she was over the top as well. And I think honestly what it is it's not how loud she was, it's not how giggly she was, it is the fact that she doesn't carry herself gracefully. And I feel like that's a weird thing to say, but neither Julia Sawalha nor Jenna Malone, either one of them convinced me that they were in any way raised in such a circle that they might have learned how to walk properly or carry themselves in a graceful way. There's no attention to any of that, and I feel like that they would pay attention to that. I feel like Lydia would be aware of how she's holding herself and all of those things because she's trying to attract men, and instead she just seems not only immature as far as her wisdom and decision making goes, but she's also immature in the sense that she doesn't seem to know how to be in any way womanly. I don't know. Maybe that's the direction it's supposed to go though. But for me, that just was a problem. Natalie Ogle. I could not stand her, which is to say she played the part very, very well. She was all of the things that Lydia is, and we wish she wasn't. I think she did a fantastic job as Lydia. She just barely loses to Anne Rutherford because Anne Rutherford is all of those things as well. She is immature, she is loud, she is very, very unwise in the way that she behaves, but she does it all within the context of coming across as a silly, immature, middle upper class woman. And so while the others, I'm like, I just don't believe that they are a Bennet. They don't fit. You can be poised and you can be graceful and still be ridiculous. And Anne Rutherford was the only one that showed you how that was possible. Kitty Bennet. We have Heather Angel from the 1940 version, Claire Higgins from the 1980 version, Polly Maberly from the 1995 version, and Carey Mulligan from the 2005 version. I think Carey Mulligan and Jenna Malone, I'm just gonna say this, I have always gotten them confused as actresses anyway, and when I don't know why, because they don't really look the same, but for some reason, I think they behave similarly or something like that, and I always get them confused. And when I saw that they were casting them together as Kitty and Lydia, I was like, that makes so much sense. They already seem like sisters to me. So I thought they worked really well together. I'm saying that kind of out of order because I thought Carey Mulligan was actually a very good Kitty. She communicates that she's more of the follower, but she gets caught up in all of the silliness with Lydia, and I thought she did a really great job. She actually is my runner-up. Claire Higgins from the 1980 version, no. I'm sorry. I just couldn't believe her. She just, no. However, because this is a trait of Kitty in the book, I just have to say she is very good at coughing. In third place would be Polly Maberly. She did fine. She just fell into the shadows a little too much for me. She didn't stand out. And she is the follower. She is the sidekick. But she was almost like unimportant completely for me. That leaves Heather Angel. Again, 1940. I thought she paired really well. Similarly, like with Jenna and Carrie, they paired really well together. And I thought that Heather and Anne also really convincing as this like pair of sisters that were really close. She just did fantastic in that job, being a really good sidekick as well. Next up, Mary Bennet. Mary Bennet, 1940 would be Marsha Hunt, 1980 Tesa Peake-Jones, 1995 Lucy Briers, and 2005 Tallulah Riley. Tallulah Riley is in fourth place. She was very shy, which I thought was maybe too extreme, because in the book she likes to perform. She wants to perform in front of people, and I thought it just didn't really work. She was a little too shy. In third would be Marsha Hunt. I do think that they did a good job casting Mary Hunt in the 1940 version. She looked like she belonged with the other sisters. She was still very pretty. She just was more bookish. However, I do think that they have a good point in stepping away from that, where she's not going to have spent as much time on her hair or her clothes. Those are not her priorities. Anyway, I thought Marsha Hunt was good. She just wasn't my favorite. In second place is Lucy Briers. I thought she was great. She did scare me when she like made a rush for the piano at that one time, but yeah, I thought she did great. But my absolute favorite is Tesa Peake-Jones. In fact, I feel like she's kind of underrated in this, but Tesa Peake-Jones from the 1980 version, I feel like she was the perfect balance of all of the different facets of Mary. And I love that like she had her little quips just thrown in here and there throughout. It was very, very Mary. Next up is Jane Bennet. In the 1940 version, we have Maureen O'Sullivan, and 1980 is Sabrina Franklin, 1995 is Susannah Harker, and the 2005 is Rosamund Pike. So Sabrina Franklin is my least favorite. She gets giggly and kind of silly in parts. It does not look like the Jane of the book, who is the least likely to make mistakes or act improperly. So Maureen O'Sullivan is gorgeous, and I don't blame Mr. Bingley at all for falling in love with her. She also comes across as sweet. I feel like she just doesn't quite have as many opportunities to show her personality the same way as they have been able to in the other ones. Rosamund Pike is fantastic for this part. I really love her. She definitely comes across as very genteel and very kind. I think she definitely holds sway over Susannah Harker when it comes to beauty. I think Susannah Harker has more of like the classic, like Greco, is that right? Greco-Europe. I feel like she looks kind of like a Grecian sculpture. Oh, I have a really hard time with this one because I think they both played the part really, really well. But I feel like Susannah Harker had just a little bit better, and she also had more opportunity to play the wise, careful kind. She played the part a little bit better, maybe just because she had more screen time. But I'm going to give the award to Susannah Harker. I really did love Rosamund Pike too. Mr. Bennet, I'm skipping Elizabeth. She's going to be later. So, Mr. Bennet. Oh, I love Mr. Bennet. And I don't like Mr. Bennet because he's like a really endearing little old man, but also he's not really a great father. But we're going to not talk too much about my own feelings about Mr. Bennet, and we're going to talk about who played him. Edmund Gwenn from the 1940 version, Moray Watson from the 1980, Benjamin Whitrow from the 1995, and Donald Sutherland from the 2005. Moray Watson. I thought he at times was great, but there were lots of times where I felt like he was just reciting his lines. I didn't feel like he knew what he was saying, or he wasn't really connecting with what he was saying. a lot of times. So he is in 4th place for me. Donald Sutherland is number 3. I really, really liked him as Mr. Bennet in so many ways. And if he was not put up against such amazing other Mr. Bennets, he would definitely be a really good contender, because I loved him as Mr. Bennet, but I didn't love him as much as I loved the other ones. That brings me to Edmund Gwenn. I love him as Mr. Bennet. He is so endearing. I love his little side glances, the little humor and twinkle in his eyes when he says little things to Mrs. Bennet, and he is so good in this part. You can definitely feel this sense that he loves to be alone in his study, and he is entertained by the ridiculousness of his family. You get all of it. However, Benjamin Whitrow, he was just everything, and it pains me to not give it to Edmund Gwenn because I love him so much, but Benjamin Whitrow is definitely number 1 for Mr. Bennet. He was really good. I'm going to move on. Mrs. Bennet, also not a great example of motherhood ideals, but she was a mother. In the running, we have Mary Bowland from the 1940 version, Priscilla Morgan from the 1980 version, Alison Steadman from the 1995 version, and Brenda Blethlyn from the 2005 version. Priscilla Morgan from the 1980 version was my least favorite. At no point did I feel like Mr. Bennet could have been so overcome by her beauty that he was able to overlook the fact that she was not going to be an intellectual companion that he could communicate with. So in 3rd place was Brenda Blethlyn, kind of the same story. Alison Steadman from the 1995 version came in 2nd. Runner-up, again, I thought she played the part well. There was someone better. It was Mary Bowland. Mary Bowland definitely had that look of a person that I could see her as a younger, bubbly person that Mr. Bennet could have gotten caught up and been like, she's fun, I like her, even though when, the honeymoon's worn off, he realizes, I can't have a conversation with this woman. Mr. Collins. Melville Cooper is the 1940 version. Malcolm Rennie is the 1980 version. David Bamber, the 1995, and Tom Hollander, the 2005. In dead last, is Tom Hollander from the 2005. He doesn't fit the description at all, and I know that sometimes you can overlook that, but Mr. Collins is supposed to be tall, and instead they went completely opposite, where they're not only is he not tall, but he's kind of laughably short, and they used that as comic relief throughout the movie, and I'm it doesn't even make sense. That's not a character trait of Mr. Collins. I thought he did great with what he was given, but I thought he was the wrong casting for the part. Following on his tail is David Bamber. He was fine. He, I think, was maybe a little too sharp, and I mean, he understood more than he should have, I feel like. In The Proposal with Elizabeth in particular, I felt like he caught on too quickly to what she was saying, and that he was actually kind of angry about it in the proposal. He was a little too intelligent, I think, for Mr. Collins. Melvin Cooper. Oh my goodness. He was all of those things that I pictured when I read the proposal scene. He, the way he, walks down the stairs and he, taps the vase and then he's like, ooh. And then he just seems really, really good-natured in kind of a cute puppy dog kind of dumb way, and also just very over the top to please and ridiculous. He was great. I loved him. He acted out all of the scenes the way that I would have anticipated. I love him running to the carriage when Lady Catherine de Bourgh comes and stops by his house, and he's shooing the chickens, and then he's just ready to do whatever he needs to do to please her. I thought he was fantastic. And then we also have Malcolm Rennie, who is also fantastic in that part, like so good. And they both fit the description. They both work well for what I envisioned in my head. And I, for the life of me, cannot choose. So I have to actually give it to both of them. And so there you have it. Next up, since we just talked about Mr. Collins, let's talk about his wife. Charlotte Lucas Collins. Karen Morley is the 1940 version. Irene Richard, 1980. Lucy Scott, 1995. And Claudie Blakely, 2005. Karen Morley, like, she did a great job with the part. She had this subtle, like, Mr. Collins, like, kind of like calming him down when he's being over the top crazy. Unfortunately, she is not a believable spinster in the making. There has to be a man willing to marry her. That's not Mr. Collins. So I think that, unfortunately, like, her beauty is a little too much to be believable for a desperate, older, single married woman. All the single married women, all single married. Lucy Scott from the 1995 is in third. She was a good casting. I don't have a problem with her, but I had better options. Claudie Blakely from the 2005. I know this is another book, but the part where Lizzie's in the swing and she's spinning around and Charlotte comes up to tell her that she is going to marry Mr. Collins, and she has that whole scene and she's like, "Don't judge me." It is such a powerful scene and I really loved it. It's not in the book, but I really loved it. And I think that she did a great job at the part. She came across as communicating all of the fears and drive that someone in her situation would feel, and I really believed her. I thought she did a great job. My favorite was Irene Richard from the 1980 version. She is intelligent, she's cunning, she's pragmatic, and she is Charlotte. We're at the end stretch here. Mr. Darcy. Now, before I tell you who wins, I want to say this quick little thing. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. These are all my opinions on who did it best. And you can disagree with me, and that is fine. It doesn't say anything about me or you that we have different opinions. It's just an opinion. So don't feel personally affronted if my opinion is different than yours. So in the running, we have Laurence Olivier, 1940, David Rintoul from the 1980, Colin Firth, 1995, and Matthew MacFayden. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, because every time I try to find like how you say it, I hear it differently. Also in the comments, you can tell me if you know. Okay, so Matthew MacFayden from the 2005. For me personally, Matthew MacFayden is the last place. I just didn't really like that they made him socially awkward and shy. I think it makes sense that somebody in that position, he's totally capable, and it's very possible that he is an introvert. But when you are raised with a family where you are told like you are the next head honcho in this family, and he would have been taught how to command, how to run an estate. He would have been taught how to carry himself and how to behave with a sense of command. And yeah, maybe arrogant, but the way they portrayed him, it was more like, it wasn't that he was arrogant, it was that he's just really, really socially awkward. I just don't believe it. Like, how would he be able to have tenants, and how would he be able to make decisions about stuff with authority if he struggles to communicate? It's just not how I pictured Mr. Darcy. But, you know, it is a new take on him. In third place would be David Rintoul. He definitely had these moments where I was like, oh, that was good job. But he didn't create Mr. Darcy on the screen. Really, really, really close runner-up. And this is the part I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of hate mail. Close runner-up for me is Colin Firth. I know. He's great. He's great at the part, but he was not quite as good as Laurence Olivier, who just totally convinced me that he was Mr. Darcy. So, I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me and don't act like I'm an idiot. I have my own opinions. And I loved Laurence Olivier as Mr. Darcy. He personified him so much that I can't picture him any other way. And I feel good about my decision. But he doesn't get an actual award for me. It wouldn't matter anyway because he's no longer alive. But it doesn't really change anything in the grand scheme of things. So if you have posters of Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy all over your walls, you keep it up. You're entitled to your Mr. Darcy, however he is. Final award goes out to the best Miss Elizabeth Bennet. We've got Greer Garson from the 1940 version, Elizabeth Garvie from the 1980 version, Jennifer Ehle from the 1995 version, and Kiera Knightly from the 2005 version. Elizabeth Garvie is number 4 for me. I didn't ever get it with her, but her name is Elizabeth, so maybe it was meant to be. But she's not Elizabeth. She's a different Elizabeth, not a Bennet. And second to last, we would have Kiera Knightly. I was so distracted by her giggling all the time. And in second place is Greer Garson. I thought she was actually really great for this part. She's great at being both graceful and mature and all of those things. But I really, really, really love her as Elizabeth. I really do. I love Elizabeth. Maybe she is Elizabeth. I love Greer Garson as Elizabeth a lot. So she is a close second. But Elizabeth Ehle created the character on film for me again. Like, when you have somebody that personifies it so well that you just picture them at this point as the character, they've nailed it. And I wasn't convinced by... Did I say Elizabeth Ehle? I might have said Elizabeth Ehle. I wasn't convinced by Jennifer Ehle immediately. It was through the whole thing, she just more and more and more was absolutely the Elizabeth that I pictured in the book. She became Elizabeth. Elizabeth Garvie was born Elizabeth Garvie, but Jennifer Ehle became Elizabeth Ehle Bennet. Okay. I just can't talk is really the reason I said that. So, words, they're hard. Jennifer Ehle, you win. Best Elizabeth Bennet. Congratulations! Yay! Okay. That's the end of it for this video. Those are all of the characters. And again, like, I didn't do some of the characters because they weren't in all 4 movies. And if they're not, then I can't really compare them. That's the point of the honorable mentions at the beginning, kind of. Plus, they just deserved it. Anyway, I hope you stick around for another video. I am trying to kind of redo or re-identify what I want to do with this channel, and that's why I've been a little MIA, but I would love for any feedback. I hope you have a great week, month, year, whatever it is when you watch this, and I will talk to you later. Pride and Prejudice, the movies. All right. I need to stop doing this because my hands look so big.